everyone, and welcome back to Session B of the Women's History Month 2021 event. My name is Ufondu. I'm a junior attending Raven Academy High School, and I have the pleasure of helping the audience navigate this session. I want to start off by giving a tremendous thank you to my colleague Deg Kalidas for leading Session A and the energy that she brought to the session. I'm not sure that I can top the amazing job that she did, but I do hope that I can reciprocate the enthusiasm that she graced us with. So this session will be approximately 2 hours long, and as your agenda shows, it'll be similar to the last one in that we have performances, speakers, panels, awards, and just so many things that we can be excited about. So please, as you've been doing, continue to enjoy the show. To begin us off, I believe that Mayor Sal Panto of the city of Easton has a message for us. And I believe that there is a video that is going to be played. Mayor Sal, video's ready.
Hello, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Mayor Sal Panto, not only for your message, but for your years of service in Easton. Next on our agenda, we're going to skip the Ogene dance and move on to Lynn Erickson, who is going to talk to us about what we can do to catalyze change in information and transformation. And you know that I love that we can engage in these wonderful discussions with these wonderful women and participate in these conversations, but we all cannot forget that there is still change to be enacted. There is still work to be done. And I anticipate that Lynn's message is going to hit all of these things. So without further ado, Lynn, I am prepared to hand the mic over to you.
Okay, thank you. I am just sharing my screen. So just one moment, please. I have it up there, but it's not on shared. One second, I'm having a little bit of a problem.
Hi, Lynn.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So it's saying Google Chrome will not record the contents of your screen until it is quit.
Okay. When you hit share your screen, are you doing application window? Hold on real quick. Let's see if we can get her back. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Lynn, if you can, turn back on that camera and mic and I can help you share your screen. See, I'm not good at this. If Deb was up here, that would be better. She can really help you guys. Lynn, can you turn on your camera and mic? Thank you guys so much for being patient. Sorry about that. Thank you.
One second. My Bluetooth.
I'm not good at the improving. Here we go. So, Lynn, hit that share your screen one more time.
I should be able to now. Sorry, I don't usually use Google Chrome and I didn't realize that would happen.
That's okay. Let's just make sure it's all good and we'll on with the show. There you go.
Okay, I don't know if I'm, okay, good. All right, we'll just go with that. Yes, because it's not doing good. Sorry, I apologize. I don't usually use Google Chrome. Okay, great. All right, thanks so much. Wait 1 second, it's loading again, sorry. All right, perfect. Oops. Okay, all right, thank you. So my apologies. So I'm Lynn Erickson, as was already said, the Executive Director and CEO of the DaVinci Science Center. And I'm really, really pleased to speak with you today about bold thinking and creativity as catalysts for embracing change and transformation. So to go to the next screen on this, perfect. Okay, good. All right. So in the short time we have together, I'm going to share two stories about female leaders in science, technology, engineering, art, and math, or STEAM, whose bold thinking and passion for making a difference led to dramatic change for the lives of women. I'll highlight the elements of their stories and how they inform my own journey at the DaVinci Science Center as we pursue bold plans for the next chapter of our development. The first is Katie Warlow. I know her well. She's a former trustee and co-chair of our Women in Science and Engineering initiative at the DaVinci Science Center. She lives and works in the Lehigh Valley. The second is Diana Sierra. She's the CEO and co-founder of Be Girl. And I learned about her because of our work in Women in Science and Engineering. And she lives nearby in Bergen, New Jersey. So for these two women, there's common themes that underpin their ability to think boldly and creatively and execute with success. They both are passionate about the individuals they serve and the potential to make a difference in their lives. They are team leaders who recruit others with expertise and lived experience to execute the vision. They're resourceful and able to think out of the box to create innovative solutions. And they persevere even when there are bumps in the road. So let's talk for a minute about Katie Warlow. Katie's a leading embryologist who has dedicated her career to improving patient care. You'll learn from her story that she's deeply passionate about her work, extremely resourceful, and persistent, even when faced with extreme challenges, to provide the best possible outcomes for couples trying to have children. For over 20 years, Katie was the scientific director of in vitro fertilization at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. She worked closely with couples desperately trying to have children. She experienced the heartbreak for those couples that in vitro fertilization did not work. Through exhaustive studies, she realized that one of the greatest negative influences was the impact of air on the chances that a single embryo would successfully become a new life. In the in vitro fertilization lab, embryo cultures spend about 7 days outside the human body. The human embryo has no mechanisms against an environment that's filled with airborne pathogens. 15 years ago, she and her team developed the first in the world ISO 5 clean room to culture embryos. This was based on her assumption that air quality played a clinical role in clinical outcomes. For over 8 to 10 years, they collected an enormous amount of data on the environment of the clean room. The clinical pregnancy rates exceeded their wildest expectations, and they received recognition throughout the world. But then everything changed. Their lab was purchased by a large corporate group and carved out of the hospital, and the work she was doing stopped abruptly. With advice from colleagues in reproductive medicine, she pulled together a team of experts to design what's shown here and the Life Air Systems air purification system to protect the human embryo based on the data she had been collecting over the prior 10 years. The system fits within the HVAC ductwork and purifies, as you can see here, all the outside air. You see that source air coming in, as well as the air in recirculated spaces. The team installed Life Air Systems in the in vitro fertilization labs of our colleagues across the US, and the clinical pregnancy rates dramatically increased. After years of testing, this system was patented, and today it's built in the Lehigh Valley and installed in IV laboratories across the country. The most amazing thing to me is the application of these systems for protecting the human embryo across a number of other areas, as you can see here. The systems are able to remediate airborne pathogens, including anthrax, MRSA, TB, influenza, and COVID-19. This means that the Life Air system has application outside in vitro fertilization and can be used to protect patients along a continuum of care, from the human embryo to the infant in NICU and the surgical patient in OR. It's also been used extensively of late in long-term care facilities. Katie fulfilled her dream to increase the positive outcomes of couples working to have children through in vitro fertilization. Let's go to my second story. So my second story is about Diana Sierra, whom I've already introduced. She's an industrial engineer from Colombia who built her career as a consultant, working for almost 10 years for multinational companies and consultancy firms. She worked extensively in developing countries. You will learn from her story that she's deeply passionate about her work, believes strongly in co-designing new products with the intended users, and perseveres when the path forward is unclear. Now, this is a dramatic picture, this next picture. In 2012, while working in Uganda on a UN project, providing training for women on empowerment and business development, she became acutely aware of the barriers to girls gaining access to education. Many girls in their teens hung out outside the classes she was conducting for women, wanting the opportunity to learn. After digging more deeply, she realized that these girls were dropping out of school because they had nothing to protect them from the blood stain on their uniforms when they got their periods. These girls were being singled out from getting an education because of their gender. The bloodstain in this photo represents the barrier between a girl and her chances to access education. With that, to address this, it was really important to address this challenge. Without doing so, gender inequality would persist, starting in the classroom and seeping into every aspect of a girl's life as she grew into womanhood. The problem was that girls did not have items to manage their periods. The lack of sanitary supplies led to self-esteem problems, and ultimately, as women without a formal education, economic disadvantages. To understand their needs, she started talking with the girls. They needed something designed precisely, remember she's an industrial designer, to work with their bodies, their cultural practices, and available resources. She had no idea where to begin, but knew that she was willing to do anything to give these girls dignity. Utilizing readily available material, she tested several prototypes with the girls and ended up with the colorful designs shown here, the period panties. She knew that she had achieved success when one of the girls commented, "What I like best, it makes me proud to be a girl." Inspired by the belief that it's the right of every girl to be proud every day of the month, Diana and a colleague established Be Girl Inc. in 2014. Be Girl is a social enterprise dedicated to meeting the needs of more than 250 million adolescent girls lacking access to appropriate high-performance menstrual products necessary to promote autonomy and empowerment while preserving the environment. Their products include the Be Girl panty, or the period panty I showed on the prior page, as well as the Smart Cycle calendar disc, which can be worn as a necklace, as shown here, and the training manual shown here. The training curriculum was developed by a team of experts to educate girls and boys about menstruation through developmentally appropriate hands-on workshops. Since its inception, Be Girl has distributed over 57,000 sustainable period products and 20,000 menstruation education tools in 30 countries. Diana is fulfilling her dreams by empowering girls and women across the globe. So Katie Warlow and Diana Sierra are bold thinkers, passionate about what they do, and strong role models of successful leaders. For me, their stories provide a valuable lens through which to view the DaVinci Science Center's development over the years and guide our future plans for a new science center in downtown Allentown. As many of you are aware, I served my first tenure as Executive Director and CEO of the Science Center from 1997 to 2005, returning in early 2013. The Science Center's early years were extremely challenging. When I became CEO in 1997, the then Smart Discovery Center was part of Lehigh University, struggling financially and conducting difficult conversations about whether or not we could be financially viable, independent from Lehigh. There was a very strong chance we were going to close up shop. However, thanks to these success factors here, the generosity and strong support of a few key leaders who really believed in our mission, combined with lots of listening to understand the needs of local schools and the community, early educational pilot projects prototyping some of our ideas, and the resourcefulness of my leadership team, we persevered. As many of you know, we are imagining now a bold next chapter for the DaVinci Science Center's development. We face some challenges and setbacks along the way. For a project of this magnitude, there will be fits and starts. This is our new site shown here in downtown Allentown next to the Grand Plaza on the left. And you can see the spiral parking deck in the back. It's on Hamilton Boulevard. In October 2019, we announced plans to build a science center at this location. Our primary goal for the project is to be able to greatly expand the formal and informal STEAM learning experiences available to youth, families, and schools across the greater Lehigh Valley region. We envision a 21st century science center showcasing science, technology, engineering, art, and math, or STEAM, in an integrated fashion, reflective of our community and capable of attracting a broad audience comprised of people of all ages and backgrounds. I'm pleased to share that we're making excellent progress, and you can anticipate an update to the public a little bit later this spring. So this is a bold idea, a new science center. Critical to our success will be many of the same factors important to the Science Center in its early years, nuanced to reflect the changing demographics of the region and our maturity as an organization. First, of course, passion, with strong public-private support for our mission. Collaboration, listening to school and community needs, in particular, authentically engaging BIPOC in the design of the new Science Center. Resourcefulness, we must design a distinctive experience that attracts individuals of all ages and backgrounds, fostering their curiosity and establishing science for all as a way of seeing and exploring the world. And of course, last, perseverance, executed by a strong leadership team. So in closing, I wish to share the following recommendations for all those in the audience with bold ideas for transformation. First, focus on what you love. Be passionate. And second, believe you can do anything and have whatever it takes to make it happen. Thank you.
Lynn, thank you so much for that presentation. It was so inspirational, and I especially women being proud of ourselves and being confident in our capabilities. And I think that if we do that, we can engage in these discussions about what we can do, not only as individuals, but as a collective community towards bettering our society. Next up on the agenda, we have a panel about what we can do as women to do the most good. So it kind of follows Lynn's program and presentation with what we can do. And I believe that Jamie Kizer is going to moderate. Hello, Jamie.
Yes, hi, Favor. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Right?
we hear you.
Great. Okay. One more. Hey, hello, everybody. The panel's all here. So I have to tell you, I am so excited for these next 45 minutes. This is such an amazing panel. You know, I had heard each of these women about them prior to meeting them and talking with them, but I have to tell you, I am so blown away, and I know that I have new friends and fellow collaborators going forward. So today, our topic is women leadership for greater good. And before I go a little bit into that, I have to tell you, Ngozi is the epitome of a woman who leads for the greater good. And thank you for all that she did to bring us all together today. So thank you very much. So women leading for greater good. What is leading for greater good? And essentially what it is, it's rooted in a philosophical doctrine called ethical altruism, which means living more for others than for yourself. You know, almost a decade ago, the Dalai Lama said that the world would be saved by the Western woman. And what exactly did he mean by that? And after some, discussions and interpretation, it came down to a couple of things, that the women who would save the world, or the women who would change the world, have three attributes. They're women who are willing to wield their power, women who are willing to respond, not react, and women who not only bring their whole selves to the table, but light a match under others to do the same. And I have to tell you, each one of these panelists are the embodiment of all of those. So on the website, I know that there's a bio for each of them, so we're not going to go into great detail, and hopefully through our discussion, you'll learn a little bit more about them and share how they as leaders have done things for greater good. So I'd like to introduce the panel first. Joanne Gere, who is the Executive Director of the Westchester Biotech Project. our very own award winner, congratulations there, Jane Schooley, who is the CEO of North Star Team Development and founder of the Brown Bin, and Dr. Khine, who is the co-founder of Khine Organics. So, so I guess what I'd like to do is just, being that our topic is women for doing greater good, would each of you share an experience or an example of something in your career that illustrates why you're on this panel or why you've been asked to be on this panel? And Joanne, if we could start with you.
Well, thank you. And I just want to underscore, and I want to agree with you loudly that this is quite a program. So I'm really honored to be here today. I'm the co-founder of the Westchester Biotech Project, and our essential core activity is that we bring together researchers, engineers, and data scientists in order to collaborate across all the different silos of biomedical research. And so that in itself is, this year we're all living through underscores how important that is. We were able to accomplish as a country in 10 months what would normally take 10 years. Because we had, despite all the craziness, we had very, very high quality people collaborating. And so that, to me, is such an essential good, and that the nurturance of that experience for all kinds of scientists of all ages and all descriptions has really been our center. And out of that, we were already we were about 4 years old. So out of that, we're actually seeing some really interesting things come out, which I'll share if they fit the next question.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jane, would you like to?
Sure. I think I'm probably on this panel because it's been my life mission to lead for good. And starting in my early 20s with varying kinds of experience, including my own awareness in my early 20s that I was not the center of the universe. That, yeah, I might have been smart or talented or able to do things, but I realized in my early 20s that that was not going to work on its own. You know, that without other people, without smarter people than me, without the connection and the help, that I was not going to be able to do it on my own. And I think I'm on the panel probably because I've made a lot of mistakes in my early time. And I learned a lot, and it's now possible, I believe, for me to be a leader because I've been through all those experiences in the past.
Well said, and I chuckle at that way. I think learning from our experiences definitely shapes us and makes us who we are today. And Khine, would you share, please?
Well, good afternoon, ladies. Here with you, wonderful, amazing ladies. I think I'm on this panel because, first of all, you ladies love me. This is my 7th year in the United States, and as many of you know, I have founded 2 companies since I arrived here. The first one's called Kinder Creations, and now I recently co-founded the new company called Khine Organics, which is all natural, 100% organic and zero waste skincare products that are based on Burmese cooking recipes. But I have always been engaged with just, starting with volunteering for women and children, especially women and children that were victims of sex trafficking since I was in Myanmar. And when I got a chance to work for Association of Southeast Asian Nations, representing 10 Southeast Asian countries where they have gone through atrocities, victims of war, victims of sex trafficking, victims of smuggling, refugees. I was in charge of women, social welfare, women, children, and labor migrant workers. So that experience combined with founding a business as an immigrant single mother in this country, I do have some experience that can relate to so many women young women that are in the same position. So I hope that, if my experience can relate to even with one person in this, among the participants, they would bring home something, a little bit of hope, or something to think about from our discussions today. So I think that's the reason why I'm here today, on top of, your love.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, each of you. In terms of, women leading for greater good, when I hear that, what I think about is women using their power, either be positional, whatever their source of power is, and influence for greater good, for something larger than themselves. And so I would like to each ask of you, and Jane, if you'd like to go first, in your opinion, how is leading for good different from just leading in your profession?
I would say I've had multiple professions, so I think I can share from a multitude of different ways, from being a faculty member to being an entrepreneur to being a real estate broker and owner to being all those things, that it's been my life philosophy that has made it possible for me to both work in a profession and lead in that profession, and also lead for good simultaneously. I don't think it's always possible to do that, depending on what your work is. But I do think that having a philosophy of life has made the difference for me in how I lead. And my philosophy is to be true to myself and my values. And I think number one for people listening, I think you really have to know what those values are. In other words, write them down, the top 3 values that you have, and know what they are. And I think one of our speakers talked about being able to be ethical by looking at things from different perspectives based on your own value system. And I also, part of my philosophy is using my voice as a force for good. And that means that you're willing to pay the price for what that is. So whether you're speaking up to a university or you're speaking up to a company that you belong to, that there's typically some sort of price to pay for that, using a voice for good. But my philosophy is that's okay, using my voice for good. And then finally, keeping my eyes and ears open to situations that present themselves to me, that inspire me, that are just ignite my soul. And so my philosophy is that we lead into situations that are present, right? Lots of situations can be present, but not everybody leads into those situations. Mine is when I see a situation that aligns with my values, aligns with my core philosophy, and allows me to be a force for good, I jump in to that situation. And rather than being a leader and creating situations, I find that jumping into situations that are already there, where it aligns with your values and your self, really works for me.
I love that philosophy, by the way. And I really never thought about it in that manner, in terms of how one becomes a leader. Do they emerge? Do they, as a result of the situation, or do they look for situations? So thank you for bringing that to my awareness. Joanne, if I can ask you, how is leading for good different from just leading?
Well, it isn't. Because we all have to create our own pathway, so that we all have to create a life that we all want to live with, but we all take different approaches and formats and so on. But what I'd like to talk about just briefly is 2 key powers that we have. And one is the power to advocate, and one is the power to judge and strategize. And I'm thinking about these questions a bit. I think of the many gray-haired, many times I said to myself, someday this experience will be useful. Someday the fact that this wacky thing happened, And my very quickest and favorite example is sitting at a table with like 30 bigwigs, and I'm sort of 30 years old, junior marketing person at this, big arts complex. And there's just a nutty situation going on, and literally saying, am I the only one here that thinks this is kind of like nuts, right? And actually being able to, I had really nothing to lose. They kind of fired me, but they, it wasn't that kind of situation. And it kind of like, yeah, this is really crazy. How do we get ourselves out of this? And I just think that those two abilities to speak up and live your values out loud, and also to choose your moment, listen, think about what the other person is saying, think about their situation, and act in a way that helps you move yourself forward, which is sometimes about extracting yourself, but often it is about moving forward. So, thanks for asking.
I tell you, both of those answers right now, Jane, when you were talking about using your voice for greater good, and then Joanne, when you're talking about being an advocate, again, those are two very powerful statements, very powerful attributes for sure. So Khine, if I may ask you the same question, how is leading for good different from just leading?
I have to say both examples that Jane and Joanne gave, it struck me to the core, because I was raised with the values that you have to use your privilege to speak up for others that don't have that. As many of you know, I was born and raised in Myanmar, also known as Burma, and we have over 130 ethnic minorities. And me being a Bamar, which is considered the largest majority, the majority of the people, even growing up in a very closed country, we never went through what many Burmese ethnic minorities went through. So when it comes to talking about leadership or leading, it never came to me, that word never came to me as I need to be a leader of this group, or I need to be a leader of this cause. It was always very natural because we had more privileges than many of the ethnic minorities in our country. And even when I was 7, I never went through any kind of, difficulties or challenges that many of Burmese women went through. Even in the United States, I was never treated tolerant, or because English isn't my first language, or any of that. So for me, leading by good, leading for the greater good would mean basically use what you already have, the resources you already have, for the betterment of your community, whether it be a Burmese community here or a Burmese community back home, or the community, the Lehigh Valley community that has become my second home. So we can all be leaders at a given moment if we take up the leadership role ourselves, that no one has to actually put us in that position. So it's just it's very thought-provoking, this topic itself, when you talk about leading, leading for the greater good.
Thank you. And I think that that's a question that each of us ask ourselves, and the audience, I encourage that as well, is what can I do with what I have and where I'm at right now, because everybody can do something for the greater good from where they're at. For a second question, Khine, let's go with you again. Is there a particular situation or event that occurred that changed your leadership style or thoughts about leadership?
I think it would be when I was working for Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I had to work with staff. The majority of them were Indonesians. They were Muslims, and I was raised as a Buddhist. So we have a lot of differences in culturally, and also when it comes to religion. And I had a culture shock when I first went to Indonesia, Jakarta, and when I was put in the position as a senior officer, I became in charge of not only the administrative work, their daily lives, how I help them balance work-life balance when they come to work and even when they go home. So to me, the most important question was, how does my leadership affect them at home when they go home before they go to bed? And when they wake up, it's the first thought they have is, oh, I hate to go to work because I don't want to see my supervisor. So for me, that was my first challenge, taking up the lead role, because I don't think any of us were taught how to be a leader. We were put in a position where we all have to assume a leadership role, whether it's as a class monitor or in the community, volunteer, or anywhere. So I don't know if I answer your question, but
you did. You did for sure. You know, and it's interesting too, because, you know, the question about leadership is, you know, are leaders born or are leaders made? And I have to agree with you. I think situations bring out leadership and leaders. So thank
for me,
you.
it definitely triggered the religion, because there was such a contrast with the teachings or the teachings that I learned as a child, and then when I was working in a country where the majority was not Buddhist, there was a lot of balance that I need to learn to adapt, and that really affected the kind of leadership that I aspire to, you know, present to my team. I didn't want to come up as someone that was insensitive to their culture or to their language or to anything that would affect the teamwork.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Jane? Up, you're muted. Muted. Wait. Can you unmute her? Well,
It's down on the bottom.
okay, so let's go on with Joanne, if you wouldn't mind, and hopefully we can get Jane some support there.
So we're talking about a situation, right?
Yeah, a situation or event in your life that really changed your leadership style or your thoughts about leadership.
So I really appreciate the way Jane was talking about, you know, looking for something that's going on that aligns with your values and jumping in. I think that's a really kind of beautiful way to explore how organizations work and grow. It's hard work to start something, so I think it makes a lot of sense to look for a potential environment where you can have a positive impact. I'll just say, in my own life, there have certainly been many situations, but at the same place that I was mentioning earlier, I was working at a university, and I would meet scientists, and I would say, well, what do you do? And they would not answer me. And probably part of it might have been because I was female, part of it might have been because I just wasn't a scientist. But the fact, some of it, maybe it was, you know, funding that they couldn't talk about, but ultimately they just didn't have to. They didn't have to make an effort to answer my question. Well, 5 years later, less than 5 years later, I was in a different situation where all of a sudden the pharmaceutical industry is going through upheaval, and all kinds of PhDs are looking for a new way of life, or new jobs, basically, and they'll talk to anybody who would listen. And I happened to be in the right spots in my coffee shop in the town I lived in to start learning about this work, and became fascinated. And so it was that combination of, like, they don't want to let me in that door. When I get a chance to go through that door and learn about what those people do, I'm going to do it. And I think that sometimes it could be something that irritates you. that, you know, it's the irritation that makes the pearl, right? And that, you know, those things that may appear to be irritations today may actually stimulate something that becomes much larger later on in life.
Oh, that's great. A great example. Thank you. Thank you. Jane, no luck yet, huh? Well, sorry about that. Hopefully,
Did she re-log in?
Can you refresh, maybe? hit refresh, it might work. But
Press Alt+C on your keyboard. Maybe you can unmute it. Alt+C.
Here comes
Alt+C.
huh. Hi, Ashley.
Click Control-Alt-R, refresh your screen, refresh that browser.
What was it? Control-R.
Darn it. She's so fabulous.
I know.
Can you see the little circle in the upper left to refresh your screen? Up near the top in your regular browser window?
Yep, remember if you highlight the link in your browser and just hit enter, that works too.
Oh, okay.
Should she log out and log back in?
That's what we're trying to get her to do, but her computer might be frozen up. She was having computer trouble this week, and her tech support guy, she was trying to get it to Best Buy. But just keep going.
Okay, yep, that's what we're going. We're going to do. You know, that's how it goes. So, Joanne, if you don't mind elaborating a little bit more, what can others learn from you about getting started or diving deeper?
I love this question. And I actually wrote notes for this question because some things started to come to me. I said, oh my God, everybody knows that. So I'm going to tell you all things you already know. How about that? First off is that we are all leaders. Already today, everyone on this call has made a decision that impacted their own lives, their lovers' lives, their families' lives, their children's lives, their colleagues' lives. You make decisions all day long which affect other people, and you know that's the muscle that creates leadership, and you know where it all begins. I think that it's really key to ask all kinds of people questions and let them entertain you with their answers. You know, there's like, people do crazy things in their lives, and to just be patient with getting the flow going, to hear what they have to say, you'll come away with such amazing stories and connections that, and have a lot of fun and make a friend along the way. Which of course leads to, you know, finding great partners, which is, you know, profound. And on the one hand, you think it would be simple, but it's probably the most difficult part of life. To seek worthy ideas and to build something that can be durable, and to allow both your positive and negative motivations to blend. You know, you may do something because there's a wonderful reason for it, but it may be there be some aspect of it that is quite tricky. But you know, learning how to move through all the different parts and stay focused on the goals is a great life skill. And you know, you don't want to put up with anything that, you know, you shouldn't put up with, but that learning to skate in a lot of different situations is valuable. And finally, this is a quote from one of my professors. You have to try a certain number of things in life before you know what you like, or at least what you can't stand.
I would say that's a great place to start. That's a very wise professor there, Joanne. And I think we have Jane Best.
I think, can you hear me? Oh, thank God. Okay. Yes.
So I'm going to go back and ask you the same question. The second one, which was there a particular situation or event that really impacted or changed who you are as a leader?
Yes, and having been alive many decades, I'll just put it that way, there are many of those things that were transitional periods, but 2020 was probably one of the biggest gifts I've ever been given as a leader. And it began at the beginning of the lockdown. And of course, none of us were doing what we normally did then. It occurred to me that the grocery store shelves were were cleared out, that therefore the food banks would not have food, and that the nonprofit organizations would not have what they needed, whether it's tents or tarps or clothing or whatever in the cold. And so I led into a situation, which is what made me think of this whole thing about seeing a situation and leading into it. And so I got the brown bin. A lot of you probably have them, that bin outside that you might put your cushions in from the summer furniture. Well, that's literally what the brown bin was. It was my bin from my cushions, and I put it out in the driveway and just began contacting neighbors about bringing food for the food bank. And that started with an enormous effort so big that I had to move the bin to my office so there was more space around it. And to date, just to give you an idea, there are over 500 people that have donated food, and I mean tons of clothing. And when I say tons, I mean 2 tons. I mean 10 tons or more of clothing. And we filled the Valley Youth House with tents and tarps and sleeping bags. And essentially, this became a supply chain to about 35 or more nonprofits in the Lehigh Valley. And I have never run a supply chain. I had no idea how to do it or what would happen. I didn't even know if I would be closed up by June of last year. And so the experience for me was one of the most heartening, magical experiences I've had in my life. I've met people who did not have their own food and were putting food in the bin for other people. And people who were coming from other countries at a time when it was very difficult to get in. They were in a hotel room and they had nothing to move into an apartment. I mean, zero. And for me, it was, okay, this is an opportunity to lead in a situation where nobody called me to do it. Nobody said I had to do it. It was just something from my heart that opened up a magical event. And when I mean magical, I mean magical. If someone says to me, do you have a twin bed? We're sleeping on the floor. I kid you not, that twin bed shows up within 24 hours. It is so amazingly magical. And I think it's a combination of, remember the philosophy I talked about, being your eyes and heart open and being able to be true to yourself and your values. I think the reason why this changed how I saw my own leadership in some ways, because it just aligned with everything that I've ever done, and and it allowed me to inspire gratefulness and gratitude in people who were depressed during the lockdown, you know, who they couldn't do anything, they couldn't go out, they weren't making a difference. And all of a sudden, 500 people began feeling hope and generosity. And so that's the thing I learned recently.
Is definitely pivotal, it sounds. So thank you. Khine, if we can go back to asking you the question about what others can learn from you about getting started or going deeper.
Well,
I would say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Khine.
Well, before I answer that, I just want the participants to think of one thing. If you want to start a project, do you gather the tools first, or you start it first without any tools and then figure out which tools you want? Because in my case, the past 7 years, I've gone through a divorce. I started a business from scratch, and then I lost it. I got, I think it was COVID, but my doctors couldn't diagnose it. It was around Thanksgiving in 2019. I was very sick to the point where I was not able to take care of my business or my teammates. And then, so basically, this past 7 years alone has taught me that we all need tools in a toolbox for every project that we want to start. And then one day we realized that we already have some tools in the bag that we never even realized that we had it. So this past Christmas, I started a new business, and I already had these tools because I have great network, great friends. So sometimes we didn't even realize that we were making friends by talking with our customers or people that, you know, we randomly meet, but those people could become our allies. Those people could become our biggest resources. So never let anything go unnoticed would be my first advice. Everything happens for a reason, and everything, instead of thinking everything happening to us, just switch that thinking to everything is happening for us. Even the worst experience could teach us something extremely valuable. So even though I lost my business, I had all these tools. When I look back, I already know how to grow a business from scratch. When I was in the heat of the moment, I couldn't think of it, but my friends, you know, they were like, "Oh, Khine, you've already done this," and you know, this friend that you met a few years ago, she's actually a great resource for you. You could get supplies from her and her brother-in-law, and then guess what? Her brother-in-law knows someone that might be able to carry a product. You know, everything happens for a reason. So whether you want to go deeper or start something, I think you have to look for those tools. And I think every little experience, no matter how bad they are, could really become our biggest resources that we can always tap into, and it can be our endless gold mine that if we know how to tap into it. So like friends, networks, for me, these are the most precious resources. Knowing you ladies, I know that at some point in my life, I would be able to tap into your resources, borrow your thoughts, and, you know, just start something new, completely new. Maybe a tech business, Joanne. I don't know.
Thank you, Khine. You know, one of the really powerful word you used was noticer, and there's a great book about that as well. And you're right, noticing things and being aware. Jane, if we could ask you that same question then, in terms of about getting started or going deeper.
Research actually shows that men can be successful with a network of both women and men. The research shows that women can be most successful by having the network of women around them. So my feeling is that, look at the conference here today. We have so much talent here today that we can all draw on, right? I certainly have drawn on it. So I believe that we create a circle of influence around us of strong women. And that means those women who love us and won't tell us when we're wrong. And those women who love us and definitely will tell us when we're wrong or going in the wrong direction. Those people, women who annoy us, you know, because often when people annoy us, we're seeing a characteristic in ourselves that needs some attention. And so those kind of people. I also think that the newest generations are great in that circle of influence because they see the world differently. And I think the senior women of wisdom who are in their 70s and 80s and maybe even 90s are also critically important in this center of influence. And by the way, they have more time than the ones in the pre. So I think that's my contribution is that build your circle of influence and get as many people who are willing to mentor, coach, advise, be your friend, listen when you need somebody to listen, go to women in different industries than your own, you know, so that you can learn from them about how they did things. And I have to just laugh because my friend Ann Baum here is saying that I learned supply management from the brown men. She is so correct. I think that's my thought is just people around you so you have a strong foundation underneath you for anything you want to do.
Well, thank you. This is such an exciting time, I think, to be a woman, first of all, a woman in business for sure. I thank each of you very much. You are all, again, you know, guiding stars and north stars for women who are leading for greater good. So thank you so much, and be well, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much to Jane, Khine, and Joanne for their words of wisdom. And Jamie, thank you so much for moderating. Next on our agenda, we have Susan Yee. He's going to talk to us about the tools that we can use to thrive in turbulent times. So Susan, I invite you to turn your camera on. But before you begin, I just want to quickly remind the audience that if you are enjoying a speech, or if someone has said something that's resonated with you, please tell them that. Let them know. Utilize the chat feature or find them later during one of the breaks for networking and resting and whatnot. One of the upsides of this interactive platform is that it facilitates socialization. So I encourage you to do that. Please, please socialize, engage, interact, and enjoy yourselves. With that being said, Susan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Favor. Hey, do I have to turn unmute on, or is it good?
No.
Yay, okay. Well, thank you, Favor, and thank you, Ngozi, for bringing us all together. First of all, if you haven't noticed, I'm Asian. In fact, I'm Asian American. I was a cheerleader in junior high school, and I was a cheerleader at a high school named Freedom, of all things. And I was the captain of the Powder Puff football team at my alma mater, Lehigh University. My first task today is to ask you to join me in letting everyone you know that violence and insults toward anyone is unacceptable behavior. Please speak your voice. It's the only way we can get back to being a civilized community. So I urge you all to do that. My second task, and especially, please help stop Asian hate. My second task is to tell you that I'm an entrepreneur, a single mom of 2 daughters, 15 and 24 years old, of which shout out to Kayla. She's logged into this forum today. I'm so happy she's here. A CEO of a tech company, a board member, an angel investor, and an owner of commercial real estate. I grew up in a mom and pop business that happened to be in cable television. And in my 20s on Friday nights, I would help repair cable boxes with soldering guns and oscilloscopes. I can say that entrepreneur is in my DNA. And a shout out to my mom. I give her credit, who's now in heaven, who probably was the first remote worker that existed while raising us in the 1960s. But a double shout out to our own host, Ngozi Bell, a successful entrepreneur in her own right, who has invested her own money to hold this event, not for financial return, but for inspirational return. I think, Ngozi, you have exponentially grown our inspiration bank accounts today. Thank you so much for your leadership. If we were here all together in person, this is where we would all applaud her. So thank you, Ngozi. So what is an entrepreneur? I looked it up. A person who organizes and operates a business taking on greater than normal financial risks in order to do so. Or you can be called an innovator, a source of new ideas, goods, services, or businesses and our procedures. So, okay, I guess that's what I am, because at one time during one of my ventures, I only had 12 cents in my checking account because all my money was put into my company. I suppose you can call that financial risk. My current company, ActiveData, actually developed a ticketing software now that was used for registration for this event. Hopefully it was easy for you. Your feedback is really welcome. We want to make it better, and we want to get more people to use it. But don't we all have a little entrepreneur inside of us? When you forget your dog leash and have to unhook your briefcase strap to use instead, or when you're in the kitchen and don't have buttermilk and look up how to make your own with regular milk, it's all kind of the same. It's an innovation for you. Translation, being resourceful to solve a problem taps into that entrepreneur inside of you. We take risks all the time, getting a degree in hopes of finding a job in that field, or waiting outside a vaccination center in hopes that there's a cancellation. Or if you're in sales, investing time with a prospect with only a 50-50 chance of winning the deal. My technology credentials include knowing how to spell XML, knowing a little bit about IP addresses, domain name services, authentication, secure keys, and APIs, but please don't ask me if I know how to Snapchat. That's what I ask my kids for. I sold enterprise calendaring software to clients such as Mayo Clinic, the New England Patriots, NC State, Lehigh University, of course, Villanova, the New York City Department of Education, and so many others around the world. My sales reps and I never met more than 75% of our customers face to face and did most everything online. Why? It was to save time and money and avoid flying on planes to reduce my cost per sale. Between my different locations, I personally regularly use 6 workstations, a laptop, a Surface, an iPad, and a smartphone as I go back and forth between them. So what does that mean? I think it means I have a little bit of a technology addiction, guilty as charged. So I suppose that's why Ngozi asked me to talk to you about entrepreneurship and technology for your business during turbulent times. Question for you. What do you get when you cross a global pandemic with business? You get 20 to 25 times faster adoption of new technology and the incentive to be as resourceful as you can be for survival. Talk about turbulence in 2020. There's no way that any of you can say your life hasn't changed one iota since the pandemic. In fact, I've already lost count of how many masks I have lying around my house ready to grab on my way out the door. So what I can share with you today that already isn't obvious is that, first of all, I love learning and sharing new things. And in the next 5 minutes or so, I hope I can share as much as I can to you so that you leave this presentation with something new, whether it's a new fact or a new way to view the future, or how you can tap into that entrepreneur gene in your own business of your life. Zoom, Teams, Google Meet, Slack, DocuSign, Dropbox, Peloton, OneDrive, Google Drive, SharePoint, Shift, Grubhub, User Eats, HelloFresh, Blue Apron, and Amazon. These summits and Remo, and finding the unmute button. You now recognize them now because you had to. We've come a long way from when I used a typewriter with 4 layers of carbon paper. All these technologies came because necessity is the mother of invention. And really, note the use of mother. Isn't it like it a proverb to include a woman? So for literal survival during this pandemic, in the weeks that Pennsylvania was literally shut down, we had to be resourceful, or what some may call entrepreneurial. As we all have had a little bit of that spirit inside of us, in the third quarter of 2020 alone, there were more than 1.5 million new business applications in the US, almost double that for the same period in 2019. Maybe you started a new business during the pandemic, or maybe you're dreaming of starting your own business one day. Well, if you are or want to, keep this info in mind. According to a McKinsey report in October of 2020, digital adoption of companies, as I said earlier, accelerated 20 to 25 times faster than would have happened prior to the pandemic. The largest shifts are the most likely to stick after the pandemic. One of them is changing customer needs and expectations. And that includes contactless and touchless delivery of things. Prior to the pandemic, it was expected it would take 511 days to change all of our expectations, but it really took 21.3 when the pandemic started. Remote working expected, according to all those IT project managers out there and HR managers that were trying to change policies, was expected to take 454 days. It took 10.5 days. Migration of assets to the cloud, normally 547 days, it took 23.2 days. And increased demand for online purchasing and services was expected to take 585 days, almost 2 years. Instead, it took 21.9 days. In this region, in the area of healthcare, Lehigh Valley Health Network's psychiatry department had only 2% of its visits conducted virtually, whereas during the pandemic, the department pivoted to having 98% of its sessions going virtual. And as a side note, the massive behavioral health needs of our community are only the beginning to be recognized. And this research showed that those that innovated the fastest grew the most. We are at the center of the 4th industrial revolution. Let me tell you the first 3, the first being steam power, the second science and mass production, the third being the digital revolution, and the fourth, Industry 4.0, which started before the pandemic, is the ongoing automation of traditional manufacturing and industrial practices using modern smart technology and machine-to-machine communication, as well as IoT, as you know, the Internet of Things. And you are a part of it. Digital adoption means user adoption. That means how many apps you've downloaded on your phone, or how many new logins and passwords you have to remember, and how often you've shared something with AirDrop or Instagram. Talk about learning. I have password fatigue, new app fatigue, and new phone fatigue. I wish things would stay the same for more than 1 year. But my last, and I want to share, my last new downloaded app was Coinbase so that I could buy some Bitcoin when it was below $50,000. I bought $100 a few weeks ago, and today I'm proud to say it's worth $125. Maybe I'll start saving for an NFT, which is a non-fungible token, so I can buy an original piece of digital art. An example is Jack Dorsey, who's the founder of Twitter. His original tweet is on bid for over $2.5 million right now. One NFT sold for $66 million of cryptocurrency just the other week. On the other hand, in a study by Katie Steckles in the UK, modern technology saves the average person 2 weeks of time each year. Internet banking saves 21 minutes a week, while online food shopping saves 23 minutes. But then, of course, that's if you're the person that does the online shopping, which I bet most of you out there are. As a working mom, I can't live without doing most of my things online. 10 years ago, I had to go to the bank to get actual physical cash to give my oldest spending money. Now, I just go online, and before my 15-year-old even gets to the checkout line, I can transfer $30 to pay for groceries. Imagine that. She's in the bread aisle and going, Mom, I need $30. I'm going to be checking out now. And within minutes, I give her $30 to spend at the cash register. The average time spent in the bank has saved me 40 minutes each week, according to this research. Mobile devices even save an hour each week by making navigation easier. What would I do without Waze to help me avoid traffic? And the amount of time I've saved by not commuting or going to meetings is crazy. I do confess, I kind of like it this way. Some call this the homebody economy. Others call it the stay-at-home play. Take a second and think about what you've learned over the last year, what we did to adapt to the new normal, or if you run your own business, or what you had to do to survive. If you were like most businesses, you found a new technology, downloaded a new app, and adopted a new one. As a consumer, the pandemic triggered 15 to 30% growth of online purchases in most categories, with millennials and high earners leading the way. But of most interest is that consumers are switching brands at unprecedented rates. So if you plan or are in retail, Ms. Kinsey states that 75% of consumers tried a new shopping behavior because of financial pressure, store closings, or changing priorities. It gives those of us that are not one of those big box brands an opportunity to thrive and succeed. Contactless or low touch shopping is also a new way that may stay. So now that your eyes have glazed over with all these stats, what does that mean for you? Digital transformation is going to continue to change our lives and our businesses, hopefully for the better. I know I already saved time by asking my friend Alexa to turn on my lights. So I saved the steps of having to walk to the light switch or put my coffee down because my hands are full. Call that lazy? I call it using my time wisely to do something else. Am I worried that Alexa is always listening? No, because she doesn't understand me half the time anyway, and I have to yell the command a second time. Some people might think that's creepy, but I like that I get ads that are related to my recent searches. Better than ads that for stuff that I have no need for. And I like making video calls more now than ever, just rather than talking by voice or regular phone. Oh, that's just so, 2019, isn't it? I work from home most days, but I don't feel isolated. And as the US opens up more and more, I don't know what I'll do differently. Ask me next year. But you are the ones making a difference by the way you shop, buy, work, learn, and socialize, because you had to. We are changing in front of our very own big and small screens. Tap into that entrepreneur inside of you. When you are young, you are expected to always ask why. As you gain more knowledge of the why, the question we now need to ask ourselves today is why not? Thank you very much. Good luck to all you entrepreneurs out there.
So much, Susan. I'm looking at this chat right now and I see absolutely nothing but glowing praise from me and on behalf of the audience. Thank you so much for your contribution to this program. Is there anything you'd like to say before I move on?
You know what? And I think I only saw Henry Odie. Hi, Henry out there. He's probably the only guy out there. I heard a phrase earlier this morning, or I read it this morning. I thought it was kind of a little bit cynical, funny. It said, good thing women are just asking for equality instead of revenge. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to leave you all with that. We're just looking for gender parity. So go forth and get it.
Thank you so much, Susan. As you'll see next on the agenda, we have a debate between Neha Skandan and Emily Alchaer. They'll be debating on the US's biggest current issue and whether it's climate change or a change in climate. So I invite both of you to turn your cameras on. And to the audience, I'm familiar with both Neha and Emily, and I know that their debate records are almost spotless. So they'll be able to hold their own, and I trust that they are going to provide us with compelling, cogent arguments. Thank you too.
Thank you so very much for the opportunity to present today. So my name is Neha Skandan, and I'm a senior at Moravian Academy High School.
And I'm Emily, and I'm also a senior at Moravian.
So today, just like Favor said, we're going to debate the topic that the United States' biggest issue today concerns climate change and not a change in climate. So Emily is going to support the topic, and I will debate the opposition.
So first, we'll define a few key terms to highlight the difference between climate change and change in climate. So climate change is defined by NASA to be a long-term change in the average weather patterns that have come to define Earth's climate, such as changes to average temperature, humidity, and rainfall patterns over time. These change factors are both natural and human-made.
And a change in climate refers to global warming, which is defined by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is essentially the Earth's rising surface temperature. So global warming is caused solely by human activity and is essentially a major symptom of the much broader problem of climate change.
With that said, we'll now move on to our opening speeches. I would like to begin by posing this question. When beginning a puzzle, is it most logical to start with the edges or the middle pieces? From the beginning of time, natural climate change factors such as volcanic eruptions, ocean currents, and orbital changes have existed, causing change in the Earth's average temperature, sea level, humidity, and rainfall patterns, as can be clearly seen in geological records. Let's say these are the edge pieces, the ones that contain the background and from which all others are connected to. More recently, human factors have fast-tracked and added to these natural problems, increasing greenhouse gases in the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution. Changes such as fracking, burning fossil fuels, and cutting down rainforests have a direct link to global warming, accelerating ice melt, as well as a shift in blooming times. Now, these are the middle pieces, the ones that catch your attention immediately, as they seem to hold the main picture. Just as these pieces are interwoven, so are the two factors and their effects. For one, natural change in ocean currents and accelerating ice melt both may lead to a change in sea level. Also, volcanic eruptions have released corrosive gases into the atmosphere and land, similar to the burning of fossil fuels and fracking. Therefore, in order to truly help our environment and our future, we must take into account the natural factors in addition to the human-made ones. We need to find and truly understand Earth's natural patterns before we can begin to take on the human-made climate change factors. When beginning a puzzle, doesn't one usually start with the edges first? If we do not prioritize the long-term patterns, the bigger picture, that is climate change, how can we fully understand how our actions are damaging the Earth, and therefore how can we truly solve them? In conclusion, failure to recognize climate change as the world's biggest issue means confining ourselves to the now, instead of learning from our past and focusing on our future. Thank you.
Benjamin Franklin once said, and I quote, "When the well is dry, we will know the worth of water." We can all agree that climate change poses a tremendous concern to society, but it is important to understand why we're at this current state with climate. Studies conducted by NASA highlight that more than 95% of the effects we see of climate change is caused by human activities linked to global warming. This means that global warming is clearly the #1 factor that is contributing to climate change. And that's not the only statistic alone. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration 2019 Global Climate Summary, the combined land and ocean temperature has increased at an average rate of 0.07 degrees Celsius per decade since 1880. However, the average rate of temperature increase since 1981 has increased more than twice-fold, with a rate of 0.2 degrees Celsius per decade. So that means in just 50 years, we see an increase of an entire degree in Celsius. This is an alarming number that will only continue to soar at an unprecedented rate if not addressed. The rise in global temperature directly feeds into the impacts we observe of climate change, from higher sea levels and severe heat waves to an increase in wildlife extinction rates. If we want to reduce the potentially disastrous effects of climate change. By curbing the human activity that causes global warming and emphasizing the reasons behind climate change, we take a massive step towards tackling the broader issue of climate today. Thank you. So to summarize both sides, there really is no straightforward answer to the topic that we're debating, as climate change and global warming are pressing and interwoven issues in society today.
While my point of view focuses on both the natural and human-made climate change factors and emphasizes the necessity of looking into the natural first,
the perspective that I share highlights that we also need to consider human-made climate change factors, particularly global warming, in order to picture and accept the appropriate measures that are needed to combat climate change.
So that leaves us with a bigger question for you. How do you see yourself playing a role to help society combat these climate crises?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Emily, we love the debate. And I love the way that this program incorporates a diversity of speakers from a variety of backgrounds, cultures, and ages. So I invite you guys to turn your cameras off. Thank you so much for the show. Speaking of culture, there's going to be a slight shift in the program. Instead of pulling Patricia Johnson on stage, we are going to have a live performance. The Ogene dancers from earlier in the program are ready to perform for us, so I invite them on stage to take it away. While we wait for them to come on stage, I'm sure they may be having some technical difficulties. I want to talk about the way I love this program. I love the platform, and of course, I would have loved more to be able to engage in person. But I love the way that we're able to make commentary in real time in the chat. I look at this chat and I see women supporting women, I see men supporting women, I see men and women supporting each other, and I think that this chat, the way that we're able to communicate with one another without interrupting or disturbing the presentations and the program itself is an amazing way to build community and build solidarity, and not only to hear the opinions of those older than us and gain insight, but to empower those younger voices in this program. I assume we still have some technical difficulties with the Ogene dancers, so we'll just give them a second to come on stage. I want to emphasize one more time to keep the chat going. Please continue to communicate, continue to engage, continue to interact, because that's one of the best parts of this program. Not only hearing these amazing women with these senses of selves, with the insight, with the wisdom, but also being able to participate in discussions with the general audience. So please continue to do that.
Hi, Favor.
Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I can see that she is on the stage, and they just are, I'm sure they're maybe prepping a little bit. They just need to turn their camera and mic on, and I'm going to pick there. Anyways, I thought this might be a good time to let everybody know when we break for the networking next time, make sure you access the whiteboard on your toolbar. There's links right there to the trivia game, and we have lots of really good prizes today. So just wanted to remind them of that. And then we have an art auction. It's just gorgeous artwork. It's on that same whiteboard. Just either scan the QR code with your phone or hit the link and let us know what you think.
Thank you so much for that. Please take advantage of that opportunity. So it looks like we are going to skip over the Ogene dancers and hope we can come back later in the program. And we are going to pull Patricia Johnson on stage to talk about the cost of a college education. Patricia, are you ready?
Yeah, there I am. Good. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I was hoping, I was like, oh no, I'm going to be pushed further down from this very excellent program. Everybody has been so good. I'm so impressed. And I want to give kudos to Ngozi and her team because this has been a wonderful afternoon. So, and I'm happy to be here as we celebrate Women's History Month. The best part about my talk is that I was able to research information from several sites such as equitablegrowth.org and interactiveunwomen.org. So now at least I feel educated, at least for the moment. So let me start by talking about the benefits of higher education. Did you know that according to the Pew Research Institute in 2018, 40% of employed women had a bachelor's degree versus 35% of men? Currently, more women are enrolled in college than men. Women gain in the workforce, though, as demand for highly skilled workers increase. Hopefully, the gender wage gap, now at about 82 cents to $1, will narrow as women move into high-skilled jobs and acquire more education. This will happen also as women get into positions where they can direct the hiring. Education and lifelong learning provide workers with greater opportunity, especially via digital delivery of training and education. I think Susan talked about this in her talk, which was certainly very much in line with this. With the complement of traditional learning methods, workers can be provided with greater opportunities when combined with a broad policy agenda to address underlying structural inequities and power imbalances. The Georgetown Center for Education and Employment found that greater education attainment associates positively with an individual's lifetime earnings. On average, recipients of bachelor degrees earn $3.4 million in their lifetime, while high school graduates earn about $1.7 million, or about 50% less. Higher education attainment also means a longer life. Female college graduates on average were expected to live 12 years longer than those with less than a high school degree. I asked why, and most of it is due to the greater employment opportunities, higher earnings, and better access to health care. Higher education attainment also means a happier life. A 2016 consumer benchmark study by Timken's Group found that 79% of undergraduate degree earners are happy versus 60% of those that did not graduate from high school. Overall, workers with university-level education are less likely to be at risk in their workforce from technological changes. But what does that mean in a job market that is evolving rapidly? The pandemic has opened our eyes to the uneven impact on women's employment versus men. Much of that was due to the fact that women provide much of the care work in the home and in employment. Paid and unpaid care work has been central to the development of economics called feminist economics, and we need to value care and guide policy to improve the well-being of caregivers and the recipients of care. The work of care is undervalued and often invisible. However, just in contrast, 5 out of the 20 fastest growing industry for the next decade are in healthcare and social assistance sector. The fastest growing occupations are expected to be nurse practitioner, occupational therapists, software developers, and IT security analysts. The majors that have the greatest job prospects are data science, pharmaceutical science, business, computer science, nursing, and human resources. But that means little if higher education is unaffordable or unattainable by those who could benefit from it. Over the last 10 years, in 2019 dollars, the cost of attendance has increased 21% for public institutions and 19% for private nonprofit institutions. The top 4 concerns of university board members were the price of higher education for students and families, student debt, the ability of higher education to respond to changing students and employer needs, and the business models of higher education institutions. It's one of the reasons why we talk about why does higher education cost so much. The higher education model is based on attaining an academic degree for a set period of time, either 2 or 4 years. This time is typically spent without an opportunity for any substantial earnings. On the other end, operating an institution of higher learning is expensive. Generally, an institution can't move corporations, of course, can change location. They can change to a more modern building. They can move to a different city in order to reduce costs. Universities have high fixed costs related to teaching and to specialized spaces such as labs and particular classrooms. There are higher facility costs for older buildings, including renovations and upgrades necessary to keep up with changing regulations such as ADA compliance. Operating costs such as utilities are expensive in an older facility than in a new building. The very thing that we admire when we visit a campus, what gives it character, can often be the source of the largest expenses. And as another example of cost, the safety standards are very high, and they should be. Higher education is a highly regulated industry with ever-changing standards from the Department of Education. The state of the economy also impacts discounting tuition through increases in financial aid as the needs grow. So what is the responsibility of higher education in the future? In order to promote equity, higher education will need to make the connection between employability and educational programming stronger. We'll also have to advocate for policies which allow for flexibility in the workplace and in educational opportunities. You will see the unbundling of higher ed. The content and learning will be repackaged, and there will be more options to learn in smaller chunks. This will have a positive impact on the individual who pays for the cost of higher education. It will be delivered as a certificate or a series of certificates. I think our first panel this morning talked about that when we were saying that it no longer is learning going to be in a box, that it's only one type of learning that will take place. But this will not replace the existing infrastructure because some will still have a desire for the traditional campus experience. But it may alter the amount of time a student spends on a campus. I've heard this model referred to as the curriculum continuum. It will allow for those who desire flexibility and workplace autonomy, as well as more control over when they receive their credential. It will be much easier to change industries to be promoted based on objective criteria and to be more flexible in addressing the balance between current life and the chances for upward mobility in the workplace. This increases access and career mobility. You will still have to have the credentialing, but it will focus on employment. What do I need to be an expert in this position? What do I need to be promoted? Higher education will be able to adapt to have greater connectivity to industry. And I'll end with this. Why did the young plane study so hard? She really wanted a higher education. Thanks everybody for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Patricia. I love what you said about how institutions of learning have a responsibility to further the general society by providing us with these opportunities and encouraging this growth. Is there anything you'd like to say before I move on to the next item on our agenda?
Well, I want to see this dance, but anyway, no, it really, I think that the pandemic has given us opportunities to make changes that universities would not have made before, at least not as fast as again, I love being kind of in the middle of our panelists because you've given some credence to some of the things that I'm saying. Certainly we move faster than we used to. It's probably not as fast as we could, but it's nice that we're able to do that. And the cost of education has been a concern for everybody. So we're all trying to address that issue all together. So.
Yeah, I agree. I do believe that the pandemic definitely catalyzed change. Like these were issues that needed attention before, but I believe that the pandemic really brought these things to the surface and really opened people's eyes to these things. So thank you so much. I am happy to tell you that I believe the Ogene dancers are ready to bring us some energy. So I invite them on stage. You are muted. Can you turn your microphone on? At the bottom of your screen, turn your microphone on. If that's still not working, you could try option C or Alt C. If that's not working, try reloading the page. While we wait for you to work out the technical difficulties, I have to say that I can't wait to see your performance. I've been looking forward to it throughout the entire program. Are you still having technical issues? You're good? Okay.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, oh, sorry about that.
Sorry,
we were having a little bit of issues. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you.
No, of course.
So this is, it's not coming off the screen though. That the mic on. It is on, but I guess it will just stay there.
All right. So hi everyone. We are the Ogene dancers, and we would like to wish you a happy Women's History Month 2021.
We are going to dance to a song called Rosalina that originated from Congo, West Africa.
So we hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy.
I hope you don't have password on this thing, Z? Okay, it's fine. No, it's not. What's your password, Z? Zaneta. What is your password?
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed. Yes, happy Women's History Month.
Thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed the way you synchronized your movements and how you presented this united front while dancing.
Thank you so much.
Next up on the agenda, I am honored to welcome back Mayor Sal Panto to the stage for the award ceremony. I believe he is going to introduce the award ceremony and discuss the awards. There we go.
Well, I'm back.
I now want to invite the award recipients, Dr. Susan Matz-Bastian, Dr. Ranju Gupta, and the Major on stage. I believe that all of them are going to speak for about 2 minutes about the award as well.
Hi. So before these wonderful ladies speak, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good.
There we go. I believe screens are loading.
Yeah, good. So I just wanted to say something about this award. So this is called the Living Positive Change Award. And, change is something that is so fundamental to our lives and something that we have come to accept and actually expect. So this award means particularly these women have done amazing things in their different disciplines to make that happen. The Living Positive Change Award is given to a woman, a young adult, or girl who successfully shines light in dark places, raises bars that are lopsided, because we know lopsided bars can sometimes be the worst deterrent, or bars that are low. They move barriers that impede. They open up doors that are closed. They fill chasms that divide. They use their gifts, their talents, their capabilities, and capacity to bring about the unending beauty of empowering other women. See, after dancing with the dancers and then being able to say this, I feel so overjoyed to just greet Dr. Susan Matz-Bastian, Dr. Ranju Gupta, Dr. Ramona Holly Major. Congratulations to all of you, and the floor is yours to give us a little bit about yourselves. Thank you.
Do we pick who goes first?
Well, I think the first in order, we can have you, Susan. You can start, and then we'll
okay.
go to
Thank you
Ranju,
very much.
and then yes.
Thank you. I'm honored to receive the award of Living Positive Change, and I believe that what we do every day in our lives makes a positive difference in the lives of others. I have many directions in my life that I've taken. I spent 25 years in education in the public sector. I spent 2 years working at the Camp Hill Federal Penitentiary to start a business and economic class for inmates who were going to be released. Some of them I still mentor to this day so they can start their own businesses. But beyond that, I started my own integrative holistic health practice several years ago when I left education, because I believed that there were a lot of people who needed access to alternative types of medicine, health, healing, and hope when all else has been lost in their lives. So I've spent the last 10 years of my life dedicating my life to helping others get better. And I also have spent I think 1997, I started in the nonprofit sector working with cancer patients. It is when my mom was first diagnosed, that's when I started fundraising and volunteering, and I now run 2 nonprofit foundations dedicated around helping those who have been affected by any type of cancer. And I believe every day that we have the opportunity to be a leader. We have the opportunity to act as a leader. We have the opportunity to expand our horizons. We have the opportunity. One of my hashtags on social media is always be more, give more, because as a person, I think we have that right to do that. My life has been driven by, and I've heard everybody during their presentations today, and I thought it was amazing, but my life has always been driven by kind of that push of all of those who always have said, no, you can't, it's not for you, you're not good enough, you're not strong enough. Those are all of the people that have given me the inspiration just to prove them wrong. And I teach that to others too. Like, the only limitations you have are those you set for yourself. And I believe a big part of our lives is taking that step further, taking that risk, going for it, going back to school, and always working to fight to be better every day. And that's what I try to do and inspire even the cancer patients I work with, or those who I encourage to go get treatment. And I have to give a shout out to Dr. Gupta, because you were helping a personal friend of mine who you've seen, and I am grateful for you every day. For my girlfriend that I brought to you a couple weeks ago. So I have to give a shout out to Dr. Gupta, because she's absolutely amazing. So my heart is going out to her right now today. So by the way, last scan results were perfect. So thank you. I want to cry, but anyway. But one of the things that motivates me to create change is I believe that we are the ones who know intuitively what's right for us as women, mothers, sisters, partners, inspirers. We intuitively know that. And I think it's our position to carry that forward to whoever we come in contact with. And I really believe with all my heart that every day we're going to do something somewhere that will inspire someone to be better the next day. And that's how I've always lived my life, in that realm, no matter what I do and all of the different venues that I'm involved with. And I just hope that I can inspire and help others who are trying to take that next step forward. That's what I try to do with everything that I do. So thank you very much. I'm very honored. And thank you to everyone else who's also receiving the award, because whether you know it or not, you also inspire someone else every single day. So thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Dr. Matz. Thank you for the shout out, and congratulations to all the awards. I'm very honored to achieve the award. And I have many hats, and actually some of the things that I was thinking about talking, Dr. Susan has already kind of covered some of that. So we really didn't know each other kind of that way, or we didn't exchange any notes. But just so that I don't forget, I would like to thank my parents. I think they made me who I am. They gave me the values, what kind of, I follow today, made me who I am. They made me fearless. They made me passionate, and they gave me the strength that I could achieve anything that I aspire for. I think that was a very good foundation, and they led by example by giving. And I think that is very core value that I have. I think it would be very disrespectful if I did not thank my husband, who has been my biggest support, along with my kids, who have always supported in my crazy ideas, because I can't do them by myself. And they always say, right, behind every successful man is a woman, but I would say it differently. Behind every successful woman is also the support of a good man, and that is my husband. And my two kids, my son Arnav and my daughter Kanchan, who is kind of here around me watching this. And you know, I'm a medical oncologist. Breast cancer is my specialty, and I do a lot of other things that have inspired me or I want to give back. The core principles that I have, one is to do everything that I do with passion. I give it my all. There is a 200% in anything and everything that I do. So when I'm wearing a hat of a medical oncologist, I give my 100% as a medical oncologist. I treat everybody as my own family member. I try to do what I would do for my own family members, and giving support to the patient and their family members is extremely important to me. The same thing goes to the other charitable work that I do. Giving back to the community, I think, is the essence of who I am. And everything else that I have done besides being a physician is around giving back. I do try to teach it to my kids too. They have always been involved in various projects through their school or outside of the school, giving back to Freemansburg Elementary School, to the children, you know, who have less than what we fortunately have. As part of the giving back, I founded a nonprofit organization. It was started by one of my stage 4 breast cancer patient, Deanna Beddix. She wanted to support other cancer patients who were going through treatment with chemotherapy and did not have support. So we started an organization called Pink Pumpkin Coin for Chemo. We do fundraisers. We have raised over $10,000 in the last 2 years, and we give all of that to Lehigh Valley Prager Fund that supports our patients and their family members. We have done holiday dinner in the December to support about 50 families. We have done it for 6 years. I'm very proud to say that we were able to do that despite the COVID pandemic in 2020 also. So that kind of gives me a lot of joy and peace. And you know, a lot of speakers today were talking about opportunities, right? Even in the pandemic. And an opportunity came, I think it was about April, when one of my ex-retired nurses kind of messaged me on the Facebook and said, you know, there is so much of a dearth of masks in the community, and I want to start a mask force, but I need money to buy all the you know, the cloth and all the other stuff that is needed to make them. Do you want to support me? And I said, yes, here is the money, let's start. And again, I don't want to take any credit for it, but it started as a small idea. My only part was to help her raise some money, and then it was that Mask Force 2020, and they have supplied more than 10,000 masks in the Lehigh Valley area to various nursing homes, patients, grocery stores. So that kind of is how, you know, the opportunity comes. You have to support, you have to give back to the community, having faith, following my guru has shown me the path to stay on the path and not to kind of, you know, stray away from the path. And those are the things that guide me. I'm very fortunate to Ngozi and all the other organizers to give me the award. But I use this platform to do something more. Award was just the stepping stone to get introduced to this platform, to know all these beautiful women who are so talented. And I really hope and sincerely hope that we would get an opportunity to collaborate together so that we can inspire the younger generation, and maybe something better would come out of it, that we can help do something or achieve something in developing countries. Like Susan said, right, that as women, we know about change, right? We have changed our roles as a daughter, as a wife, as a mother, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, and whatever other hat or role is given to us. We are the first teacher as a mother. So we can definitely bring the change. We are the light, we are the change. We have to teach our children. We have to educate them. We have to make them fearless, especially our girls. We have to tell them nothing is impossible. Now we have a Vice President, Kamala Harris, who is kind of, inspiring all of us that nothing is impossible. And I really want to leave that hope and that light and the feeling of change that goes away with my award. So thank you again for the honor, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ngozi and Rising Together. I'm honored to be here today to receive the Living Positive Change Award. I'm at this point in life only because of the women who came before me and the women who saw me worthy and chose to invest in me. From my mother and grandmother who helped to mold me and prayed for me, to my sisters for their patience and listening ear, to the teachers here in Allentown School District, Mrs. Houck and Mrs. Kalachava, that saw something special in me and nurtured it. And to the mentors I have been blessed with over my career, Dr. Lateef, Mary Ellen Bowden, and Dr. Thornton. All helping to set the bricks on the path I have walked and continue to walk. They have created windows for me to see that glimmer of light in the tunnels. They encouraged me when I no longer believed, supported me when I was too prideful to ask for help, and lifted me during times of sadness and celebration. I have found that the best way for me to say thank you is to give back to my community and create that glimmer of light for others, to empower girls and women, particularly those of color, to know that they are qualified, talented, deserving, and beautiful. A quote by Mother Teresa, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples." This quote speaks to the impact each of these women have had on my life. I have been blessed beyond measure.
Please take advantage of those opportunities. There will also be volunteers floating throughout the floors. So if you have any technical difficulties or if you have any questions, please ask them and they will assist you. And when we come back in 15 minutes, around 4:25 or so, my colleague Genesis will be here to guide us through session C. Thank you and see you in 15 minutes.